When you talk about bumping a player, it's pretty much
great courage. One that says the bump is dead, that's how you deliver it.
What is going on, YouTube universe? My name is Trent and welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, where we discuss everything Australian rules football. And today, after a week's absence, we are back yet again, just like your missus tells you, to get your tips in. And we're doing so ahead of round 14, the final week of the buys for the year. Thank fuck for that. It's our secondary set of buys. I feel, has killed momentum a little bit and caused a lot of controversy this year with certain teams getting 2 buys before one team gets 1 buy and all that fucking conjecture and everything around it. So it's going to be great to kind of leave all of this behind and move forward into round 15. But today is all about getting our tips in for round 14 and reflecting on round 13. And it is time to address the elephant in the room. I'm not at all talking about myself, but I am talking about myself because there was no tipping video last week. There was no podcast last week. I did put out a community tab post showing my tips and also doing the MVP leaderboard for round 13. I took a bit of a tumble. Turns out I've got multiple fractures in my left ankle. I'm in a moon boot, hard to get around physically, mentally, a little bit exhausted. So just took a few days to kind of recollect myself, but we are back. And we had a pretty decent week. The only downside was I thought Richmond would get up for Dusty's 300th game, and they did not. Hawthorn won that game, and that was the only game I tipped incorrectly because we backed the Lions by 38. They won by 26, so we were, 20 rather. So we weren't far off the margin there. It looked like it was probably going to be that margin at one point or another. Then the Bulldogs absolutely destroyed Fremantle. I thought that game was going to be closer, but obviously, you know, they fucking came out the gate strong, those bastards. My boys were disappointing. Adelaide, 2 points up at 3/4 time and then end up losing by 40 points. No fucking shock there, really. Collingwood with one of the best comeback stories you will ever fucking see. 9 goals down to win by a point and surrounded in controversy, which we will talk about in the podcast, and the podcast will drop probably tomorrow, so it'll be a round 13 recap podcast during round 14, just the way my schedules fell this week, so I do apologize for that. And obviously GWS wrapping up the round with a rather solid, I don't want to say convincing or solid because it was really neither. It was a pretty dull game for most parts, but GWS got the job done. I got 5 out of 6. There were a select few that got 6 out of 6 though, so congratulations must go to Durable Lamb 6, Vincey Boy, Rockstar Pool 69, Dusty Fendoff 4, Tony Chop Chop, Dan Cash, Macca0303, and Team Wiggles for all correctly tipping a perfect round for round 16. And with those tips comes a little bit of a shift in the tipping competition overall. We have one of the mainstays of my previous tipping competitions in Frio90 sitting on top of the leaderboard with 82 tips. She is ahead of Dusty Fendoff, who is in second place on 80, and then we have Dan Cash nipping at the heels in third with 79. Our top 10 rounds out with Some Cripple, My Big Force, Kin, and Team Wiggles all on 78, Matt Lamb 24 on 77, Madge Tiggs, Benny Craig on 76, and then we have a tie for 10th effectively with Pommy Tiger, Saintly 12, Gramercy Riff 78, and Durable Lamb 6. My whole thing for this season, because of how badly I started the year off, was to catch up and finish in the top 10. I've currently weaseled my way from 23rd up to 17. I'm only 2 tips out of the top 10, and I'm hoping this week I can make some moves that are going to maybe solidify that top 10 push. There won't be any multis in this week's particular tipping video, but I do urge you guys, if you want to discuss any bets or anything that you guys are doing at home for any of these games, to share those in the comments of this video. I know some of you will. And as always, I do appreciate the fact that you guys come through and give feedback on things like that. It is something that, again, I've mentioned it a few times already, But it's something that's a real touchy subject because some people don't want to touch it because it's involved with gambling and they don't want to toe the line. And I don't at all endorse gambling, but given the scope of these videos that I've made in the past over on my gaming channel, you know, the conversation has always been with viewers about, you know, the bets that they put on and the odds that they're getting for certain things and, you know, the overs and unders and all that kind of stuff. So in my mind, it kind of told me that maybe slipping that in could be a fun little way for us to interact with each other on a different level. And obviously, we see it on the TV every week. We see Billy Brownless and Daisy Thomas popping up and Nathan Brown and all the sports bet ads and everything else that they do in between games for the weekend. So I think it adds a little bit of flavour. Round 15 kicks off tonight as opposed to last night because of the buys. Thank you very much for killing Thursday night football, you bastards. Tonight at the MCG, Friday night blockbuster between Carlton and Geelong. Two teams wanting to solidify their seasons respectively. Carlton, I think, is the better looking team here, but there are some big ins for Geelong. We have the likes of Patrick Dangerfield and Zach Tui coming back into the lineup. Dangerfield hasn't played for a very long time. We know for the majority of Geelong's run over the last few years, Patrick Dangerfield has served as somewhat of a barometer. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he operates coming back into this team. I just think Carlton are going to be too good here. And I'm going to go by 20 points. Geelong's midfield just give Carlton's midfield way too much license to get off the chain and do what they want with the ball. And Patrick Dangerfield coming back in, I don't think he's going to change that. You know, we've got Patrick Cripps, Sam Walsh, Blake Acres out on the wing, Adam Chera in the guts, George Hewitt rotating in the guts. These players are going to get a lot of the ball tonight, and I think they're going to be too hard to stop. Tomorrow afternoon at Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide taking on Brisbane. I am going to go with Port Adelaide here, but I'm thinking an upset could be potentially looming, only because Port Adelaide this year haven't been too convincing with backing them at Adelaide Oval. They've dropped a couple of games there that they shouldn't have, and Brisbane are really starting to get their season up and about, and they showed emphatically that they can win down here in Melbourne. So why not go to Adelaide and win in Adelaide? I can feel it, and there might be a change in tip coming here, but for the time being, for the sake of this video, I have enough faith in Port Adelaide getting the job done in Adelaide. At NG Stadium, later that afternoon, GWS taking on Sydney. As much as GWS's social media team has come out this week and put out a great little promo for this, Sydney are going to absolutely wallop them. I don't think GWS is going to be the team to derail them. They are flying, and I don't see where their next loss is going to come from. Unfortunately, I don't think they play Richmond again. Otherwise, I'd say it'd probably come at the hands of Richmond, because my stake to fame this year has been the fact that everybody's saying who is going to beat Sydney. And I keep on harping on about the fact that Richmond did. Nobody gives a fuck, though. So we'll just move on. MCG, Saturday night, Melbourne taking on North Melbourne. I'm going to go with Melbourne here. It is going to be very interesting to see how they operate without Christian Petrarca for the rest of the season. Very much in the same vein as talking about Patrick Dangerfield and Geelong. I feel Christian Petrarca is a barometer for Melbourne in the way that he's not only, you know, a star midfielder for them, but he's got that potential to go forward and kick 2 or 3 goals a game and really turn the tide when they really need that shift. Without him, I don't know who's going to step up. I don't know whether an Alex Neil-Bullen steps up into that role. I don't know whether now if Christian Salem is going to get more midfield minutes. We know that the father-son pick in Brown is now going to get a debut this week for Melbourne. I don't know whether he's a likely type, but I think Melbourne are going to be too strong against a North Melbourne team who last week, as I said, were up by 9 goals and lost by a point. They're going to be ruining the fact that they let that game slip. They're going to come out strong out of the gates in this game, but I think Melbourne are going to be too good, especially with the likes of May in the backline being able to squash Nick Larkey's input. Sunday has 2 games, the first of which sees Essendon taking on West Coast at Marvel. Now, this is interesting because I've seen a lot of people getting behind West Coast here and really pushing for an upset. Now, you got to think, the last time these two teams played, I think it went the way of Essendon by 5 points, but I think that also you've got to take into the equation, it was played up at Optus Stadium, and West Coast have really started to turn their fortunes around at home. I think it is a completely different ball game down here in Marvel. I think Essendon are going to win this one by at least 4 goals. And at Optus Stadium, speaking of, we round out the weekend with Fremantle taking on the Gold Coast. I am going to go with Fremantle at home. Really loving what Fremantle are doing. They got absolutely shell-shocked by the Bulldogs last week. in a game that I really was very shocked with the fact that that even happened, because the week before they absolutely pumped fucking Melbourne. So I don't know, when you look at Freo here, they're really, and I said it last week and I said it the week before, they could be a finals dark horse if they make the top 8. They could be one of those teams that not many pay too much respect to and could do some damage come that end of the, that time and period at the end of the year. But they're just too inconsistent, and their inconsistency is too glaring for me, because you've got a team that wins by almost 100 points one week, and then the following week gets pumped by 10 plus goals. I don't know. I really don't, but I think they're going to be too good at home for the Gold Coast here. So locking up my teams and tips for the weekend, we're going with Carlton, Port Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne, Essendon, and Fremantle. For those who do the minimum 5 and the gauntlet, I was eliminated out of both rather early, so you guys can go and get fucked. I do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm really looking forward to just another cracking week of football. I'm hoping we can kind of start finding a little bit of consistency with these new interpretations, with umpiring decisions. I'm not going to hold my breath though. As I said, podcast covering round 14 will drop tomorrow, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, provided they're playing, of course. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.